Been going through a lot of old stuff, remembering a little bit of my racing past and a little bit of the past here in Central New York. One of the guys I've been finding a lot of photos of lately is on the phone with me right now. Lance Yonge is 59 years old. He is getting ready to retire as the highway superintendent at the town of Milo. On the side, he's been doing some construction stuff. He went to school for heavy equipment back in the day, and it's pretty much been his whole life. So I imagine he's pretty darn good at it. He's also a pretty darn good race car driver as well. Tied for third on the Empire Super Sprint's all-time win list. Chuck Hebing just caught him this past year, so at some point he'll be back to fourth, but still quite a career for him. 30 years, started back in 1984, ended, I thought this was a lot later than this date, but 2013. Let's head on down to Penyan, New York. Lance Yonge joins us right now. Lance, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing, Doug?
Doing very well. So life has been good since 2013. You've been able to stay busy and try not to think about racing too much?
Yeah, very good, actually. Been quite busy and do not think a lot about racing. Oh, I don't know. In the last 10 years, I probably haven't been to 10 races, so it's one of them deals where it's out of sight, out of mind.
Well, you have to do that, right? I've used the analogy, and you tell me if you think this is right, but like an alcoholic better not be hanging out in the bars too much or he's going to be back drinking again, right?
Well, that's kind of the deal. You know, every time I go, I feel like should be out there. That's the deal.
Have you been?
And so it's just easier to stay away.
Had you been close a couple times to saying, maybe I could do one race?
Actually, no. You know, in my mind, I think I should, but I've been offered rides and turned every one of them down. And just when I retired, I didn't actually officially retire, never told anybody I was retiring, but when I walked away, let's say, I just decided right then and there that I was done.
Well, didn't you tell me you made a promise to your wife?
I did, and that's part of it, you know. So when I told my wife when I was 45, when I turned 50, I'd be done racing, and I turned 50 in September and ran my last race in October.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things, too, you have a daughter who's just a little bit older than mine. Must be nice to be that guy who can actually go to some of her things.
Yeah, she was big time into lacrosse, and when I quit, he was still playing high school, and went on to Portland to play lacrosse, women's lacrosse, and unfortunately only got to do 3 years because the year of her senior year was COVID year when they canceled all sports. So she was a little bummed about that, and so were we. You know, we followed all our games and went to as many as almost all of them, not quite all of them, but you know, it was disappointing for us too because we get to be friends and tailgate with all the other girls' parents, and it just turned into a good time that we got taken, you know, the rug got pulled out from under us.
Do you still keep in touch with some of your friends from racing?
Oh, yeah. There's, you know, that's the biggest thing about racing. You make so many friends, and, you know, I wish I could talk to more of them, but the ones that were very important to me, I still stay pretty close to. I got to keep track of what's going on.
We were just talking beforehand about certain things that can happen to you on the racetrack in this sport. You said all 30 years you'd never caught on fire once. I guess I thought that after 30 years that was something that would happen to everybody.
Well, I guess that's a good thing. You know, I don't know how many times I flipped, but, you know, and bad crashes and this and that and the other thing. But one thing that definitely eluded me, and that was fire, and I'm thankful for that.
What drew you to sprints? You told me you had an uncle that raced sprints when you were a kid.
Yeah, I had my mother's brother, would be my uncle, Bob Shaw, raced back in the late 60s, early 70s, had a sprint car and ran a lot of Central Pennsylvania and URC races back then. So I can remember being a little squirt sitting in that old sprint car. It was back then there was no roll cages even. So.
Oh, it was those kind of sprint cars.
You know, those kind of sprint cars. So, yeah, so that's kind of what got me hooked on the sprint car bug, but. You know, when I was growing up around here, the sprint ESS was just taking off, and modified. You know, we're 12 miles from Dundee, and that was my big goal to get into a small block modified back in the day, and we made that happen.
By the way, I appreciate you using the term "little squirt" instead of the term you used before we hit the record. So Lance gets a bonus point. He knows that swearing is gets me a point, so I have to make sure that I don't do that. But you didn't start in this. You actually did a street stock at first. What, 1984?
Yeah, I graduated from college in April of '84 and worked that summer and finally got enough money, and I think it was August. I ended up buying a street stock car. We ran the last 5 races, I think, at Dundee that year. in a street stock, and that was just enough to convince me that I needed to get it modified.
Oh, really? So that just didn't, or you looked at modified and said, that's really where I want to go, or what?
That's where I wanted to be, and, you know, just with the crashing and banging and stuff that you get in the street stock class, I wasn't much into that, and didn't have two nickels to rub together, but we found enough money to put a modified together in '85 and raced 7 years, I guess, in the modified class.
And, of course, I would imagine your experience working with heavy equipment helped you when it was time to build and maintain a modified.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's all, like I said, I went to school to be a heavy equipment mechanic, so it's all turning wrenches. And once you learn, you know, what speed parts are and how things go together in a race car, it's all relative. It's all mechanics.
I told him to store. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's all mechanics.
I was just going to say, I figured that out pretty early, that, you know, a lot of prep in the shop goes a long ways on the racetrack. Just
like with your heavy equipment, if you don't maintain your equipment, it's going to break down in the middle of the job. So
exactly.
I met a young girl years ago at a place. I can't remember, but she really caught on really fast, and I remember asking why. She ran heavy equipment as a kid. She said, and her family, you know, seconded this, that the hand-eye foot coordination that running heavy equipment as a young person helps you as a driver. You agree?
I do agree. You know, it's all running heavy equipment, running an excavator, bulldozer, whatever. Your eyes got to work with your hand running them levers, and, you know, so you're not digging gas lines up out of the ground, or, you know, you're carrying grade with a dozer, and you gotta make that dirt come out to within an inch or whatever you're grading to, and it's all hand-eye coordination. Same with racing. You know, you get into the corner and you want to get underneath somebody, and you got to make your eyes and your hands work together so that you steer the car around them. You know, it's all relative.
Yeah, because you're doing three different things. You know, just like
exactly.
driving a standard shift. You know, there's a lot going on down there. There's a reason a lot of people don't drive it today.
That's right.
Because it's kind of hard. Did 4 seasons in the 320s. Actually won a championship at Dundee in '88. So the next challenge was a little bit more horsepower, a big block, huh?
Yeah, we did big block from '89 to '91, I guess it was. And part of the reason back then is when Dundee was transitioning to sportsman only. They're getting rid of the modifieds.
Right.
So if we wanted to stay in the modifieds, we had to get a big block and start running Canandaigua and weed sport and rolling wheels, you know. And I was doing that anyway with a small block, just it turned into more when we got the big blocks. And unfortunately, the big block deal didn't ever, I never spent the money on it that needed to be spent. You know, I bought a good motor when I first started, and we didn't run that very long, and the crankshaft ended up breaking, and I didn't have enough money to put another good spare together, so we screwed around for a couple of years with, you know, under horsepowered, and you just can't, when you don't have horsepower, it's tough to keep up. And so I think summer in '91, about halfway through the summer, I had a bad crash at Canandaigua, and I just told my wife right there, I said, we're done. We weren't having fun. We weren't winning races. I said, we have to do something different or else we're getting out of this deal. And that's when we started talking about ESS and sprint cars.
So had you always wanted to do that from back when you were a kid?
Right. You know, they'd always been a goal of mine. Just didn't know when it was going to happen.
Biggest sprint car win. We're coming down about a minute and a half left. When you look at, if you were to put together a resume of some of your accomplishments, especially in the sprint car side of things, what would be at the top of the list?
Well, definitely Syracuse in 2000. We won the ESSUR Challenge race there with Malcolm Lane. You know, that's anytime you can win on that Syracuse track, it was very prestigious and something that obviously nobody else is going to do anymore. So
that's true. No more wins coming at Syracuse, by the way. But I forgot they used to run those things there. Less than a minute now. On a scale of 1 to 10, how scary was it getting around that mile? Because I talked to some of the World of Outlaw guys who came in a few years later, and they said,
Well, you know, I don't know if we just got lucky and hit the setup the first time there, but I was never scared. To me, driving that car around Syracuse was like driving down the thruway.
Just another
You're going
trip.
fast. You realize you're going fast, but I never spooked myself. You know, the car just handled so well for us. And like I said, I think it was just luck that we backed it out of the trailer with the right setup and we're able to go fast.
And the 10 minutes is darn near up. So, Lance, I'll be back in touch with you soon. We'll explore more of his sprint car years in the next interview that we get with him. Hit that blue E down there in the corner. Subscribe. Turn on likes, notifications, all that good stuff. Lance, you take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon, bud. Thank you.
You too, Doug. Thanks.